जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजना यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अस्तोत्र सत अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अस्तोत्र सत श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडराचार्य बीवीटी फाउंडराचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 12. It's a new chapter we started yesterday. Creation of the Kumaras and others. And today we have text 3. Drashtva papiyasim shrishtim natmanam bhav amanyata bhagavad dhyan putena manasanyam tatoshrajat Drishtva papiyasim shrishtim natmanam bhavamanyata bhagavad dhyan putena manasanyam tatoshrajat. Please. Drishtva papiyasim shrishtim नात्मानं भावमन्यता भगवद्ध्यानपूतेना मनसान्यां ततो सृजत् दृष्ट्वा पापीयसीं सृष्टिं नात्मानं भावमन्यता भगवद्ध्यानपूतेना मनसान्यां ततो सृजत् दृष्ट्वा पापीयसीं सृष्टिं नात्मानं भावमन्यता भगवद्ध्यानपूतेना मनसान्यां ततो सृजत् दृष्ट्वा पापीयसीं सृष्टिं नात्मानं भावमन्यता भगवद्ध्यानपूतेना मनसान्यां ततो सृजत्. Mataji, please. दृष्ट्वा पापीयसीं सृष्टिं मन्यता दृष्ट्वा पापीयसीं सृष्टिं नात्मानं भावमन्यता दृष्ट्वा पापीयसीं सृष्टिं नात्मानं भावमन्यता Word to word, please repeat. Drishtva, by seeing. Papiyasim, sinful. Shrishtim, creation. Na, did not. Atmanam, unto himself. Bahu, much pleasure. Amanyata, felt. Bhagavat, on the personality of Godhead. Dhyana, meditation. Putena, purified by that. Manasa, by such a mentality. Anyam, another. Tataha, thereafter. Asrijat, created. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Seeing such a misleading creation as a sinful task, Brahma did not feel much pleasure in his activity, and therefore he purified himself by meditation on the personality of Godhead. Then he began another term of creation. Purport. Although he created the different influences of nations, Lord Brahma was not satisfied in performing such a thankless task. But he had to do it because most of the conditioned souls wanted it to be so. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, that He is present in everyone's heart and is helping everyone to either remember or forget. The question may be raised, why the Lord, who is all merciful, helps one to remember and another to forget? Actually, His mercy is not exhibited in partiality towards one and enmity towards another. The living entity, as part and parcel of the Lord, is partially independent because he partially possesses all the qualities of the Lord. Anyone who has some independence may sometimes misuse it due to ignorance. When the living entity prefers to misuse his independence and glide down towards nations, the all-merciful Lord, first of all, tries to protect him from the trap. But when the living entity persists in gliding down to hell, the Lord helps him to forget his real position. The Lord helps the falling living entity glide down to the lowest point, just to give him the chance to see if he is happy by misusing his independence. Almost all the conditioned souls who are rotting in the material world are misusing their independence, and therefore 5 kinds of nations are imposed upon them. As an obedient servitor of the Lord, Brahma creates all these as a matter of necessity, but he is not happy in doing so because the devotee of the Lord naturally does not like to see anyone falling down from his real position. Persons who do not care for the path of realization get full facilities from the Lord for executing their proclivities to the fullest extent, and Brahma helps in that procedure without fail. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna. So we heard like how many years of penance Brahma had performed before to be able to get these powers to create, to start this creation. And after all this power we see here, Brahma, he is not satisfied. I don't know if anyone else had this experience. Like you invested so much energy, so much time, so many resources in something, and then you felt it was all useless or it wasn't very satisfying. This is what Brahma is feeling after creating this. But one may ask, why did he do this then? So as we heard in the purport, as he is an obedient servitor of the Lord. So as a service, as a thankless task, Brahma is creating all these kinds of nations which he does not ordinarily want to create. So there is one example that Srila Prabhupada gives in one of the early purports in the first canto. And he says that there is like so many kinds of literature out there in the market, and there is like even a censor board which oversees like certain kinds of literature should not go out in the market. So he's saying there that because people want it, so those literatures are being provided, but the government, they have these censor boards to oversee what kind of literatures are being put out. So similarly, there is Brahma here who is creating these things, because living entities, I like this one word in the purport here. It says they are persistent. Although Lord tries to protect them, but they are still persistent to go the other way. So I know one practical example, like sometimes we go to the Griffith Observatory, and when you go up the hill, there is many signs saying it's only one way. So there is only one way to go, but still, and there is even staff there. They have staff who kind of, some people still choose not to see the sign and go the direction they want to go. So the staff kind of points out, wrong way. They actually shout loud, wrong way. And I was like, imagine like doing a service like this all day, like you have to shout at people, wrong way. And but still there are some people, they are like, forget about it, I don't care, I have to go this way. So I've personally seen this happen, and I even talked to the staff after. I was like, man, like, how do you feel like dealing with all these kind of people? Like, you know, there are so many signs. I saw like many signs when I drove up here. And it was like, well, this is our service. So it can be frustrating, but, you know, there are people who are doing it. So I was like appreciating the service I have. At least I don't have to shout loud all day like them. But we can see like devotees, they naturally, they are well-wishers. Prahlad in 7th canto, there is this pastime, he's speaking with his school friends. And it's interesting how he addresses them. He addresses them like, "O sons of demons." And his friends, they are pretty cool about it. You know, oh, you know, our friend is like really sharing something wonderful, so let's listen to him, what he has to say. So imagine like you've been invited to speak somewhere, like say at some school or something, and there you go and you're dressed like this, "Oh, sons of demons." I mean, how well it will be received. So we can see like devotees, they have also same qualities of the Lord, and developing those qualities, they become very attractive. Even sometimes they may some chastising words, it doesn't hurt people. They actually receive it in a nice way. We can see even in our own lives, many of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he would use like words for chastisement, and disciples would not be upset. They would actually like it. Oh, my spiritual master is chastising me. So Brahma, he's in this condition where he don't want to do this, but he's kind of forced to do it. And still, because he is a devotee, he is thinking, I do want to create something that will help these so-called persistent living beings to look in the other direction and not just go the wrong way, to see for some signs and hopefully change their direction. So we will hear in the next verse, Brahma then, after creating all these 5 kinds of nations which binds people, which forces people to act ignorantly. So in next, he is creating 4 kinds of knowledge that frees one from these 5 kinds of nations, ignorance. So what would be opposite of ignorance? Knowledge. But just having knowledge of, like there are so many knowledgeable people, like I was giving the example of there's so much literature out in the supermarket, you can go and study. Does that actually help people become free from ignorance? Not many people are becoming free from ignorance. So what kind of knowledge is needed? So that's what Brahma is thinking of creating. So he creates Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, and we know what do the 4 Kumaras do. They are traveling all over to share spiritual knowledge, to tell people, don't go the wrong way, take the right way, see the signs. So there is one beautiful pastime that I was looking at, and that's the pastime where there is this son of one king, Uttanapad. It's in the 4th canto, and he actually has 2 sons. One is Uttama and another one is Dhruva. Now many of you may have heard of the planet Dhruva-loka, or in outside world it's known as pole star. Once or twice. Okay. Yeah, so this planet was given to this child, Dhruva, who was actually hurt by some comment by his stepmother. So they are 2 brothers, Uttama and Dhruva, and they are like sons of 2 different queens king has. But the mother of Dhruva, she wasn't the favorite queen. The king didn't give her much importance. And the other queen, she was like dear to the king. So when Dhruva, he was naturally, a child is, attracted to the father, especially when the father is such a great person, he's a great king. And he's 5-year-old, so kids, they don't make judgment, they don't see like this person is like, envious of me, or this person is more loving to me, affectionate to me. But Dhruva saw king, he had Uttama on his lap. So kids are like that. Those who are parents, maybe they have experienced this. He also wanted to go and sit on the lap of King Uttanapad. But then his mother stepmother made a very harsh comment, and she actually told him that you cannot sit on the lap of the king because you are not born from my womb. And if you do want to, then what you have to do is you have to go and pray to Vishnu. You have to get his blessing to be born from my womb, and then you may be able to sit on the lap of your father. Imagine like someone saying this to a 5-year-old child. It sounds pretty harsh. When I read this, I was like, oh my God, like how can you say this? But this is what happens when we are covered by these different kinds of nations, and people end up doing things that they may ordinarily not want to do. So they are forced to act in that way. Now, Dhruva, what does a little child do? He's crying and he went running up to his mother. That was his another shelter. So his mother, it's amazing. His mother seems like she's not very advanced conscious person the way the king is treating her, but she is actually, because she didn't usually people would like, point out some fault in other person or say something, how can this person talk to you like this or not. But she actually said, you know what, your stepmother, she is right. You should actually see her just like me, like your mother, because she is like your mother. She's the other queen of the king. And she actually gave you a really good suggestion. So you should take the good suggestion to meditate on Vishnu, because even I have heard people who meditate on him, they get all their desires fulfilled. So it's a pretty good suggestion she has given you. So don't be upset with her, but take her advice and act on it. Now Dhruva, we can see he's a Kshatriya. So their ego can get hurt very easily, like, they want to be honored. So when Dhruva heard this, but at the same time, they are very determined. You see in the battle, a warrior, they fight, and they actually like it. Even when they are being hurt, there are like different weapons being thrown at them. They kind of like it. They feel, I'm so great, I'm so powerful, it doesn't hurt me, let's keep going. So if you heard from maybe some military person, their experience, they might have shared something like that, but it's nothing how these kings in ancient times, they felt. So Dhruva, he cried for some time, but then he kind of understood, okay, there's no way out, so I have to do something and maybe take this suggestion. He went out in the forest, and there he meets Narada Muni. Now again, Narada Muni is another son of Brahma. The Kumaras, Narada Muni, they are actually brothers. And Narada Muni, what does he tell Dhruva? He tells him that Narada Muni heard that there's things like this going in the palace of Uttanapad. So he was like, okay, let's go and check them out, what's going on here. And Narada Muni, he meets Dhruva and he tells him, hey Dhruva, you are only a little child. There are so many dangerous animals here, so many dangers in the forest. What are you doing here? And Dhruva's response was, you know what, I have been hurt very bad. So I'm sorry, I may not be able to offer you proper respects, but I would take your suggestion. If you have some suggestion for me, I have been hurt in this way and I really desire to take revenge. I want to have a bigger kingdom. So he was expressing these desires to Narada Muni. Imagine a 5-year-old child. Generally, 5-year-old child don't talk like that. But sometimes there are some. So here is Dhruva, and he's talking to Narada Muni in this way. And Narada Muni, generally you see people go to sages or gurus and they ask them, please give me some blessing, please give me benediction. But generally they are asking for material benedictions. And even Dhruva, if we see, he's doing the same thing. But here Narada Muni, he's showing compassion. Generally he might just ignore, but he might just like forget about this, just keep going, just like these people who are saying, forget about you, I'm going this way. So, but Narada Muni, because he knows who Dhruva is, he's like come from a great family, great heritage. So he wants to help him in this situation. And what does he tell him? he also tells him the same thing, and Dhruva was surprised. Oh my God, like again, this person also telling me the same thing. What? Bhagavat Dhyanam Putena. Here in this verse it says, Bhagavat Dhyanam Putena. Brahma did the same thing. He again engaged in Bhagavat Dhyan, meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become purified, so he can create something beneficial for people to become free from these 5 kinds of nations that he has created. So Dhruva, Narada Muni, he gives him the Ashtanga Yoga process, and in the purports, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that Narada Muni gave him this process of Ashtanga Yoga because his mind was so disturbed. He just couldn't be at peace at all. He was so disturbed. So he had to give him this process. There's like breathing exercises. But then, even there, Narada Muni, he gives him a mantra. Does anyone know what mantra he was given? Every morning we say this. So, does anyone know, this may be a little difficult, does anyone know how long it took him to actually see the Lord face to face after performing this meditation? 6 months. Wow. I mean, I feel like I'm in a very learned gathering here. I feel like a child now. So, yeah, he performed 6 months of meditation and he could see Lord face to face. But what was his experience when he saw the Lord face to face and Lord giving him opportunity to ask for benedictions? Brigupati. Yeah, he regretted his desire for revenge against his stepmother. Sachitanoy Prabhu, you have anything else? You want to say something else? He said regret. Yes, yeah, it's a very beautiful verse actually. So, Dhruva, I actually have it here. Let me see. Oh yeah. So this is a prayer it's given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sthanabhilasi tapasi sthitoham tvam praptavan deva munindra guhyam kacham vichinvan api divya ratnam swamin kritarthosmi varam nayache. So Dhruva, when he saw the Lord face to face, he is saying, after seeing you, I have become so satisfied, I do not want to ask for any benediction. But in another verse, it says, he actually regretted because he did not take instruction of Narada Muni completely. And he regretted because he has these feelings of revenge. He was actually seeing his stepmother as an enemy who was trying to stop him from sitting in the lap of the king. And there's like a whole stanza, whole string of verses where Dhruva is expressing his regret like this. And then he composes, he offers these beautiful prayers. Because he's only 5 years old. I mean, you know how many 5-year-old here we see come and offering like prayers to the deities. Yeah. So Dhruva, he was because touched by the conch the Lord carried, and it's mentioned he became like completely purified. So he was able to compose these beautiful prayers. And he was able to express this. But then it's mentioned there, because he had these material desires, of getting like a kingdom, then it's mentioned that Lord still, he actually told him that you will get a planet, not just like a little kingdom, but you will have a whole planet which wouldn't, which is eternal in one sense, that it wouldn't be annihilated when the partial annihilation happens. So Dhruva was, and then he also told him that you will rule the kingdom for, okay, let's see. Another difficult question. 36,000 years. And how many years did Lord Nrsimhadev asked Prahlad to rule? Same number of years. I was thinking about it, it's surprising. I was like, how does that work? 36,000 years is like a specific number. But yeah, he's a little child. Imagine like he got like such a big kingdom. He's going to rule for so many years. But he don't want to rule the kingdom now. His desires are changed. So this is what happens when one meditates on the Lord. Bhagavad Dhyanam. There is a, I will stop this one verse that's given in 11th canto. It's the Navayogendras, 9 great sons of Lord Rishabdev. They are sons of God. And they are traveling, sharing bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, spiritual knowledge with people. And they happen to meet King Nimi, who is a great king. Word Nimesha actually is there because of King Nimi. And we were studying about time in previous chapter. Nimesha, like a few seconds, few moments. So Navayogendras, and one of the sons out of 9, his name is Karbajan. He talks about different avatars for different yugas, and then talking about avatar in the Kali Yuga. He says few prayers, few verses, where he's mentioning the same point, Bhagavad Dhyanam. Because meditating on the Supreme Lord, it brings purification. It brings freedom from all these kinds of nations. So he says, Krishna Varnam, Tvisha Krishnam, Sango Pangastra Parshadam, Yagge Sankirtana Prayar, Yajanti hi Sumedasha. So in these words, he's mentioning about Lord Chaitanya, Krishna Varnam. And he's talking about the process. We know, we can guess what age was Dhruva meditating in. Satya Yuga. Why? How did you guess? Yeah, because in Satya Yuga people could live like 100,000 years. And Dhruva, he ruled for 36,000 years. He meditated for 6 months. And he was 5 years old when he started his meditation. So he lived a long life too. So in Kali Yuga, how long do people live? It said 100 years, but we don't see many people live 100 years. So the time is very short. And that reminds me, my time is also very short. So, so I will just conclude with this one prayer that, let's see if I can remember this. Deyam sada paribhav ganam abhishtadoham tirthaspadam shiva virenchinutam saranyam vrityartiham pranatapal bhavabdipotam vande mahapurusha te charnaravindam. So Sage Karbajan, he gives this, talking about different avatars, he gives this verse also, and he says, Deyam sada paribhav ganam abhishtadoham. All these miseries, they are completely destroyed by meditating on the Mahapurusha. Who is the Mahapurusha for Kali Yuga? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he said that And then in the next verse, he didn't stop there, he kept going about Sankirtan. So there is another verse where it says, I don't think I can remember this one. Something about Sarva Yagya Sankirtanaya Sarva Swartho Abhilabhyate. So he is saying that in this age of Kali, one can achieve Sarva Swartha, all good things one can achieve just by engaging in this Sankirtan, in chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we can learn from Lord Brahma about this Bhagavad Dhyanam, because that's the easiest way of being purified and being able to do something beneficial for others. There, I had lots more things, but everyone has so much time. Do you have a question? Maharaj, do you have a question? Comment. So let's take question first. Bhrigupati Prabhu.
Thank you for the class. Prabhu, in the purport, is what we're hearing a description of what happens in the spiritual world before the living entity comes down to the material world? It was describing how, the living entity is wanting, not desiring devotional service. Krishna is trying to discourage him from.
Yes. Yeah.
But he's persistent,
yes.
So Krishna helps him.
Yes.
And then Lord Brahma kicks in once he's in the material world by
yes.
supplying. So are we hearing a description of how the living entity falls from the spiritual world and how Krishna tries to talk him out of it, basically?
Yes. So I hope everyone heard the question. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada, as we heard, he doesn't give much information, but I was listening to a class, and it was Jana Nivas Prabhu speaking. And he shared something that I can share. I don't have a reference because he didn't give a reference either. But what he was saying is that, yes, originally the living entities are in spiritual world. And Krishna gives them 3 chances, he said. But the living entity, they still desire to go away and forget Krishna and try to be enjoying separately from Krishna. And that's why they are put in this trap. So yes, Krishna does give chance. And we can, even logically one can understand, like any parent, they do try to, there would be a rare parent who would try to educate their children to just go and make mischief. Usually parents try to help the kid to be a nice kid. So just like a wonderful father, Krishna does try to stop, but the living entities still go ahead and do what they want. Because in the purport is also mentioned, every living being, they also have qualities of the Lord. Partial qualities. They don't have them in full, they have a little bit, and that's why they also have the minute independence to choose to be somewhere else. And just like we heard how Lord gave a whole planet to Dhruva, that planet was already there even before Dhruva, but he gave this planet to Dhruva, being pleased with him. So same way, Lord has to engage all these devotees to create these temporary existence where people can go and experience being away from Krishna. As we heard, that Krishna lets them try up to the lowest limit and see if you are happy. And then if they realize that it's not very satisfying. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there are a few verses like that where Krishna says that, those kind of living beings, they will be cast in hellish planets for a long time. So that's there. But Krishna also sends these devotees like Narada Muni, Sage Karbajan, he sent Srila Prabhupada. So there are devotees also. Krishna himself comes, he speaks Bhagavad Gita as Vyasadeva, he writes so many texts. So it's not that after they come to material world that Krishna is like, forget about those guys, they're not gonna listen. But he comes again and again.
Okay.
So this was what Channa Nivas Prabhu said, and he was even giving maybe name of couple of devotees who heard this from Srila Prabhupada. I couldn't find a reference, that's why I didn't mention it. But since you asked, so that's what I have heard. Do you know anything else?
No, but one brief comment before I pass the microphone. I don't think Prahlad Maharaj was trying to insult his classmates. The word demon was understood in a different way. It doesn't have a negative connotation. It's just like another family, you know, the Daityas, and the
Prahlad.
So it's just like if you gave that hypothetical address. It's like you say, sons of the Americans. It's
Yes.
The in-house understanding might be, well, they're Americans, they're materialists, but it's not an insult. So it was understood in a different way. But,
I mean, Prahlad is also born in the family of demons, so they kind of understand. But someone who is not a demon and he says, you all are demons, then he won't be received very well probably. Yeah. But you see, that's why I was giving example of Srila Prabhupada. It depends what's one's position is, what's one adhikar is. Like Srila Prabhupada, he could say, you're a fool or a rascal. But if I say this to someone, they may not like it. That's not my adhikar, so I won't say it. But he could say that. So the point I was making is that when you are pure, sometimes even if you chastise someone very heavily, like Krishna chastised Arjuna, he even called him impotent. But Arjuna didn't get angry. Krishna, we are friends, how can you say this? No, he received it in a nice way. He understood what Krishna is talking about, and then he listened to his instructions. He actually surrendered to him. So that's the benefit of being chastised by a pure conscious person. But if the chastisement doesn't come with the intention of benefit of the person, people won't receive it nicely. That's what I was thinking. Maharaj.
Thank you. Thanks for a very nice class, Prabhu. Stimulated a lot of inspiration in my. The very important point is that Dhruva Maharaj was very much like all of us. He was a materialist to begin with. Palaces. He wanted something better and bigger and greater than Lord Brahma even had. So often we see castles and we see palaces and we see mansions and we say, oh wow, this is wonderful. I wish I had something like this. But Dhruva Maharaj in his pastime, he says, well, those things may be beautiful, but when you see Krishna, there's nothing that can compare to that. There is no one greater, no one higher, no more beautiful, more attractive, more prepossessing. So Dhruva tells us, don't be so attached to the material attractiveness. These things come and go. But Krishna does not come and go. He is forever. And his beauty is forever. His love is forever. His kindness is forever. His sweetness is forever. And when Dhruva saw the face of the Lord, that's what he saw. He saw all those beautiful qualities, and he realized that his desire was really low class compared to what it could have been if he had known what Krishna looked like. So that's all good for us. When we see palaces and you see castles and you see all these things all around, so I wish I had that. I wish I could be that. So, no. Better to be at the feet of Krishna. Then you have everything. Because if you have at the feet of Krishna, you have the grace of Krishna, the love of Krishna, the kindness of Krishna, the sweetness of Krishna, and there is nothing greater, better, bigger, and higher than that. So if we have that, we have it all. If we don't have that, and all we have is palaces, we have something which is here today and gone tomorrow, in spite of the fact that it looks like it's going to stay forever, and yet it does collapse and disappear and grow with the ravages of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Okay, I think we can stop here. There is one last point is like about meditation. It's mentioned like even when Dhruva, he was given this meditation process by Narada Muni, still Narada Muni, he gave him a whole description before, like how beautiful the Lord is. So it's mentioned there in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that even in those days, like the process was, the Ashtanga Yoga is not just like meditating on whatever, it's, you have to meditate on the form of the Lord. There is a form of the Lord you have to meditate on. That's what Dhruva did. And Dhruva, he actually saw the same, whatever description he was given, he saw the same features of the Lord when he saw. Actually, he was confused. He was like, not confused, I shouldn't say confused, but he was feeling whatever I'm seeing inside is the same thing outside. So we say, Bahir Narshinga, Hriday Narshinga, Bahir Narshinga. So he was experiencing that. The same thing he was meditating on, same features, the Lord showed up. So this is very important point to understand. Even when we are chanting Hare Krishna, this is another purport. Srila Prabhupada was mentioning that when we are chanting Hare Krishna, we don't have to artificially meditate on some form. We don't have to artificially imagine something in our mind. He said when one is purified, just like to Dhruva, Lord showed up, same way the Lord will reveal himself. And you know, we know how the Nama, Guna, Rupa, Leela, all these things, they gradually come as one's developed taste for chanting. So I thought it was important to mention that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank
you. Did you want to add something? Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you.